nothing in the world like Action Park.
Baby, let me take you where the action is hot. Action Park.
The story?
Tragic torture video. I think this is the worst tragedy captured on video that I've ever seen.
Every year, millions of thrill seekers flock to amusement parks worldwide, chasing the adrenaline rush that comes with defying gravity and facing fears. These statistics seem reassuring. According to the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions, the chance of suffering a serious injury at a theme park is about 1 in 15.5 million rides. Yet behind these comforting numbers lies a darker reality.
It's a horrific accident at the Ohio State Fair. 1 person is dead and 7 others injured.
When things go wrong on these massive machines designed for fun, the consequences can be catastrophic. From decapitations to drownings, electrocutions to infernos, the history of amusement parks is punctuated by tragedies that transformed jubilant days out into nightmares.
Billed as one of the safest rides at the park called Dream World, a place this morning of nightmare.
These aren't just accidents, they're cautionary tales that have forced an entire industry to reckon with the true cost of entertainment.
It's a theme park tragedy. It happened overnight. We mentioned this at the top of the show. At least 4 people were killed in Australia when a popular ride malfunctioned.
As we explore these haunting incidents, we're confronted with a sobering question. How much risk are we willing to accept in our pursuit of thrills? The name itself should have been a warning. Verrückt, German for insane or crazy, loomed over Schlitterbahn Water Park in Kansas City like a monument to human ambition and ultimately to hubris. When it opened in 2014, the water slide stood 17 stories high, taller than Niagara Falls, claiming the world record as the tallest water slide ever constructed.
Now to what is supposed to be the world's biggest water slide. The opening has just been delayed, though, for a 3rd time. The big question, of course, is it safe?
Its creators, including Schlitterbahn co-owner Jeff Henry, weren't just building an attraction, they were crafting what they hoped would be a landmark that would draw thrill seekers from across the country. The concept was terrifying in its simplicity. Riders would plummet nearly 120 feet down a near vertical drop at speeds approaching 70 miles per hour before being propelled up a second hill and then down into a finishing pool. The raft would carry 3 riders, secured only by Velcro straps and netting over the top of the slide. During testing phases, unmanned rafts repeatedly went airborne, a problem engineers attempted to solve by adding weight to the rafts and modifying the slide's contours. On August 7, 2016, 10-year-old Caleb Schwab, son of Kansas State Representative Scott Schwab, boarded a raft with 2 adult women. What should have been an exhilarating ride quickly turned tragic. Witnesses reported that Caleb's raft went airborne at the second hill. The boy collided with a metal support hoop holding the netting, resulting in decapitation.
The latest on the 10-year-old boy killed at a Kansas water park on what is known as the world's tallest water slide. That slide now closed as we learn new details about the tragedy.
The 2 women with him suffered severe facial injuries but survived. The subsequent investigation revealed a damning pattern of negligence. The slide had been rushed to completion to appear on a reality TV show.
We saw that there was the supports that hold the netting in place that's over the slide. A couple of them were all bent and jagged out of place. My mom saw the 2 people on the other, behind the second and third row seats, and they were just covered in blood.
Engineers later admitted that the team had no technical expertise in designing water slides. They were essentially making it up as they went along. Calculations for safe operation had been miscalculated, and reports emerged that sandbags used in testing had gone airborne, a clear warning sign that was ignored. Perhaps most disturbing was the revelation that other riders had reported that the Velcro restraints came loose during their rides. Former employees came forward with stories of near misses and safety concerns that went unaddressed. The tragedy led to criminal charges against the park's owners and the ride's designers, including involuntary manslaughter, though these were later dismissed due to improper evidence presentation. The Verrückt tragedy stands as a stark reminder of what happens when commercial interests and record-breaking ambitions overshadow safety concerns. The waterslide never reopened and was demolished in 2018. The Schlitterbahn, Kansas City location closed permanently, while the Schwab family received a settlement reported to be nearly $20 million. More importantly, Caleb's death triggered stronger oversight of amusement parks in Kansas, which previously had some of the most lax regulations in the country. The New Jersey Action Park legacy. In the rolling hills of Vernon, New Jersey, there once stood a place so dangerous that emergency medical technicians stationed ambulances at the front gates. They called it Action Park, but locals had darker nicknames: Traction Park, Accident Park, or Class Action Park. Operating from 1978 to 1996, this amusement park embodied the wild, unregulated spirit of the 80s, a time before helicopter parenting, when safety was often an afterthought to adventure. Action Park was the brainchild of Eugene Mulvihill, a businessman with a reputation for bending rules. His vision was simple yet revolutionary. Why watch others perform stunts when you could do them yourself? The park featured attractions that would be unimaginable today. The Cannonball Loop, a water slide with a complete vertical loop that frequently left riders bloody and bruised.
At the most dangerous theme park of all time, there was a water slide that held one person that went in a flip. Now imagine getting stuck in that.
The Alpine Slide, a concrete track you descended on a sled with questionable brakes. And the Tarzan Swing, which flung visitors over a frigid pool, often filled with chunks of ice, for added excitement. The park's dangerous reputation wasn't just folklore, it was deadly reality. Between 1978 and 1996, at least 6 people died at Action Park. The first fatality occurred in 1980 when an employee rode the Alpine Slide after hours, flew off the track, and hit his head on a rock. In 1982, a 15-year-old drowned in the tidal wave pool nicknamed the Grave Pool by employees due to its powerful waves and depth. A 27-year-old man was electrocuted in 1982 when he stepped on live wiring in the Kayak Experience. 3 more drownings occurred in 1984, 1987, and 1994. What made Action Park particularly dangerous was its DIY approach to safety engineering. Many rides were conceived and built by people with no formal training. The infamous Cannonball Loop, for instance, was reportedly designed on a napkin and tested using employees who were offered $100 to try it. The first several testers emerged with bloody noses and other injuries. Management's solution: add padding at the top of the loop and cut an escape hatch for those who got stuck. The park operated in a different regulatory era. New Jersey had minimal oversight of amusement parks, and Action Park exploited every loophole. They allegedly established their own insurance company based in the Cayman Islands when no American company would insure them. Alcohol was readily available throughout the park, adding another layer of danger as intoxicated guests attempted increasingly risky stunts. Despite or perhaps because of its dangerous reputation, Action Park was wildly popular, drawing up to 20,000 visitors on peak days. For many teenagers coming of age in the 80s and early 90s, surviving Action Park was a rite of passage. Former guests recall park employees who seemed indifferent to safety, often teenagers themselves more interested in flirting than monitoring rights. The park finally closed in 1996 after mounting lawsuits and declining attendance made it financially unsustainable. Though it briefly reopened under new ownership and safety standards in the 2010s, the original Action Park remains a cautionary tale about what happens when amusement crosses the line into reckless endangerment. The drop tower disaster at Icon Park. The video is disturbing to watch. 14-year-old Tyre Sampson, seated on the Orlando freefall drop tower at Icon Park, looks uncomfortable as the ride begins its ascent. Unlike others around him, his harness appears noticeably higher, with a visible gap between his body and the restraint. As the ride reaches its peak of 430 feet and begins its terrifying plunge toward Earth at over 75 miles per hour, the unthinkable happens. Tyre slips out of his harness and falls to the concrete below, in full view of horrified onlookers and friends who had accompanied him to the park on March 24, 2022.
Before a 14-year-old fell from the Orlando freefall at Icon Park and died.
The Orlando freefall, marketed as the world's tallest freestanding drop tower, had been open for less than 5 months when the tragedy occurred. Manufactured by Austrian company Funtime Handels GmbH and operated by Slingshot Group, the ride was Icon Park's newest attraction, designed to give thrill seekers the ultimate freefall experience. But for Tyre Sampson, a promising football player from Missouri visiting Orlando on spring break, it became a death sentence. The subsequent investigation revealed a cascade of failures and negligence. Tyre weighed approximately 380 pounds, well over the ride's weight limit of 287 pounds, yet the ride operators, who should have denied him access based on safety protocols, allowed him to board. More damning was the discovery that the ride's sensors had been manually adjusted to accommodate larger riders, a modification not approved by the manufacturer that essentially disabled the safety system that should have prevented the ride from operating if a rider wasn't properly secured. The restraint system itself was flawed for someone of Tyre's size. Unlike many similar rides that use both over-the-shoulder restraints and a between-the-legs secondary restraint, the Orlando Freefall relied solely on a harness that pulled down over the shoulders. For a rider of Tyre's proportions, this created a gap that proved fatal when extreme gravitational forces were applied during the drop. Text messages later revealed that the operators knew about the adjustments to the sensor system. "We have been taking down settings daily to allow larger people to fit," one employee wrote, adding, "The harness safety light was on in a seat and pushed it down to make the light go off, but it was still too tight for a guest." These messages suggested a pattern of overriding safety features to accommodate more riders and increase profits. The aftermath was swift and severe. Tyre's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against multiple entities, including the ride's operator, manufacturer, and Icon Park itself. The Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services immediately shut down the ride. In October 2022, the ride operator agreed to pay a $250,000 fine and permanently ceased operating the freefall. For Tyre's parents, the pain was compounded by the public nature of their son's death. Videos of the incident circulated online despite their pleas for removal. "This could have been prevented. It should have been prevented," Tyre's father, Yarnell Sampson, told reporters. "My son was a football player and he was a good student. He had a bright future ahead, but it was taken from him in an instant, in a second." Roller coaster derailments, Big Thunder Mountain. Disneyland will never be completed. It will continue to grow as long as there is imagination left in the world. Walt Disney's famous words about his beloved park took on a darker meaning on September 5, 2003, when imagination and engineering failed spectacularly on one of the park's most popular attractions. The Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, Disneyland's iconic mine train roller coaster, had been thrilling guests since 1979 with its recreation of a runaway mining train careening through the colorful landscapes of the American Southwest. The ride's carefully crafted narrative told the story of a haunted mining operation where trains ran on their own, a fictional premise that became horrifyingly real when the front car of a train derailed during an ascent on the ride's third lift hill.
Leaving a car dangling from the track, you can see it there live, those two riders falling more than 30 feet, 8 others rescued from the coaster.
22-year-old Marcelo Torres of Gardena, California, was seated in the front car when disaster struck. As the train began climbing the hill, it suddenly separated from the track. The locomotive portion dropped onto the car behind it, crushing Torres. 9 other passengers were injured, but Torres suffered severe blunt force trauma to his chest and died before he could reach the hospital. The subsequent investigation revealed a perfect storm of maintenance failures and procedural breakdowns. The immediate cause was determined to be a mechanical failure. A guide wheel assembly had come loose because of a missing fastener. This crucial component had fallen off due to improper maintenance, causing the train to lift off the track. But the root causes went deeper. Investigators discovered that Disney's own maintenance protocols weren't being followed. Records showed that Big Thunder Mountain Railroad had been experiencing increasing mechanical problems in the months leading up to the accident. Critical fasteners had been replaced improperly, with mechanics using the wrong parts or failing to secure them correctly. Most disturbingly, maintenance workers later testified that they faced intense pressure to keep rides running, sometimes cutting corners on safety procedures to reduce downtime. The California Division of Occupational Safety and Health, Cal-OSHA, report was damning. It concluded that the accident would not have occurred had the maintenance procedures and processes been followed. The agency cited Disney for failing to provide adequate training to mechanics and for not implementing proper safety protocols. The Torres family eventually settled a wrongful death lawsuit with Disney for an undisclosed amount. What made the Big Thunder Mountain tragedy particularly shocking was that it happened at Disneyland, a park with a reputation for obsessive attention to detail and safety. If a fatal accident could occur at the happiest place on Earth, with its resources and reputation at stake, it revealed a troubling truth about the amusement industry. No park is immune to the consequences of neglected maintenance and procedural failures. The accident forced Disney to overhaul its maintenance operations, implementing more rigorous inspection protocols and training programs. Big Thunder Mountain remained closed for nearly a year while engineers redesigned several mechanical components and added redundant safety systems. The Ohio State Fair catastrophe. The Midway at the Ohio State Fair had transformed into its usual carnival of lights, sounds, and thrills on the evening of July 26, 2017. The Fireball Ride, a pendulum-style attraction that swings riders back and forth while spinning them in circular motion, was in full operation, filled with excited fairgoers. Among them was 18-year-old Tyler Jarrell, a high school student who had just enlisted in the Marines and was enjoying a summer evening with his girlfriend.
State Fair in Ohio, and a word of caution, the video's tough to watch. You can see a man being flung from that tall, swinging carnival ride. That man died. At least 7 other people were hurt.
At 7:24 p.m., the unthinkable happened. As the ride reached its apex, a loud crack echoed across the fairgrounds. One entire row of seats broke free from the main structure, sending riders hurtling through the air. Tyler Jarrell was thrown 50 feet and pronounced dead at the scene. 7 others were injured, including Tyler's girlfriend, who suffered a traumatic brain injury but survived. The Fireball, manufactured by Dutch company KMG, wasn't some makeshift carnival attraction. It was a modern thrill ride that operated at major fairs worldwide. This particular unit had been in service for 18 years, traveling to different fairs and events. Before the Ohio State Fair opened, the ride had passed multiple inspections, including one on the morning of the accident. So what went wrong? The answer lay hidden within the metal arm that catastrophically failed. Engineering analysis revealed severe corrosion on the interior of the gondola support beam.
This report from the Ohio State Highway Patrol is 61 pages long. It does not tell us exactly what caused the ride to fall apart, but now we know investigators say no evidence indicates the accident was a result of people who were operating the ride.
Corrosion that wasn't visible during routine visual inspections. Years of water accumulation inside the hollow steel arm had eaten away nearly half the beam's thickness. What appeared solid on the outside was perilously weak within. The investigation highlighted a critical flaw in amusement ride safety protocols. Inspections primarily focused on visible components and operational tests, not the internal structural integrity of critical load-bearing members. KMG, the ride manufacturer, had never issued requirements for ultrasonic testing that might have detected the internal corrosion before failure. This ride was inspected at multiple levels multiple times, said Ohio Governor John Kasich in the aftermath. It was signed off yesterday. His words underscored the inadequacy of existing inspection protocols for detecting certain types of deterioration. The aftermath brought swift changes. KMG issued a directive to all Fireball operators worldwide to cease operations pending inspection. The company subsequently redesigned the affected components, replacing hollow steel arms with solid steel ones that couldn't corrode from the inside. The Ohio legislature passed Tyler's Law, requiring more comprehensive inspections and detailed maintenance records for amusement rides. For the Jarrell family, these changes came too late. He was about to serve our country and not able to do that now, Tyler's mother, Amber Duffield, told reporters. The family eventually reached settlements with KMG and Amusement of America, the ride's operator, though no amount could compensate for their loss. The Ohio State Fair tragedy revealed that even modern rides with seemingly robust inspection processes can harbor hidden dangers. It also demonstrated how the traveling nature of many amusement rides, exposed to various weather conditions and frequently assembled and disassembled, creates unique safety challenges that permanent park attractions don't face. The Batman Ride Decapitation. On a sweltering Georgia afternoon in June 2008, the queue for the Batman, the ride roller coaster at Six Flags Over Georgia, was filled with excited parkgoers. Meanwhile, 17-year-old Asia Leishawn Ferguson of Columbia, South Carolina, and a friend were contemplating how to retrieve a hat that had fallen into the restricted area beneath the coaster during a previous ride. Despite multiple clearly posted warning signs and security fences, Ferguson made the fatal decision to climb 2 6-foot fences and enter the restricted zone beneath the inverted coaster. What happened next occurred so quickly that most witnesses didn't comprehend it until it was over. As Ferguson wandered in the restricted area, the Batman ride, which reaches speeds of 50 mph and features riders suspended beneath the track with their legs dangling, was in full operation. The train swooped through the course and struck Ferguson directly in the head, killing him instantly and decapitating him. The horror of the incident was compounded by its preventable nature. Batman, the ride, was operating normally with all safety systems functioning as designed. The danger came not from any mechanical failure but from a deliberate decision to ignore multiple safety barriers and warnings. The ride was operating normally, a park spokesperson stated afterward. The gentleman climbed over 2 6-foot fences that were clearly marked with restricted area signs. What made this tragedy particularly disturbing was that it wasn't the first such incident at the same ride. Just a year earlier, in May 2007, a park employee had been killed in a similar manner while performing routine maintenance in the restricted zone. In that case, proper lockout procedures hadn't been followed before the employee entered the area. After that incident, Six Flags had strengthened its safety protocols and added additional fencing and warning signs, measures that proved insufficient to prevent Ferguson's death. The dual fatalities at Batman, the ride, highlighted a different kind of amusement park danger. The risk created when the carefully designed separation between riders and ride machinery is breached. Modern roller coasters operate with incredible precision, with computers calculating clearances down to inches. These calculations assume no human presence in restricted zones. In the aftermath, Six Flags added even more barriers and warning systems around Batman, the ride, including alarmed gates and surveillance cameras. The park also increased security patrols around popular attractions. Ferguson's family, while devastated, acknowledged that their son had made a fatal error. No lawsuit was filed as the park was deemed to have taken reasonable precautions to prevent such an incident. The Batman tragedy serves as a somber reminder that amusement park safety isn't solely the responsibility of park operators. Guests who disregard safety instructions, whether out of thrill-seeking curiosity or simple negligence, put themselves at extreme risk. The massive machines designed to safely thrill thousands become deadly when encountered outside their intended operating parameters. The Haunted Castle Fire. On the evening of May 11, 1984, the Haunted Castle at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey, was filled with teenagers seeking thrills in the dark, maze-like attraction. Built from 14 connected commercial trailers disguised as a medieval castle, the walk-through haunted house was a popular fixture at the park, featuring narrow corridors, special effects, and actors in monster costumes who would jump out to scare visitors. At approximately 6:35 p.m., a 14-year-old boy accidentally brushed his lighter against a foam padding wall while trying to navigate through the darkness. In the oxygen-rich, enclosed space, the flame found perfect conditions to spread. The polyurethane foam wall coverings, installed to deaden sound and enhance the spooky atmosphere, ignited almost explosively. Within minutes, the entire structure was engulfed in flames. The resulting fire moved with horrifying speed. Many visitors initially thought the smoke and heat were part of the attraction's special effects. By the time they realized the danger, the narrow passageways had become death traps. 8 teenagers, unable to find exits in the smoke-filled maze, died of asphyxiation and burns. The bodies were found clustered together, suggesting they had been disoriented in the darkness and smoke, unable to locate emergency exits. The investigation that followed revealed a disturbing pattern of safety oversights. The haunted castle had no sprinkler system despite being constructed of highly flammable materials. Fire extinguishers were present but insufficient for a structure of its size. Most critically, the attraction lacked adequate emergency lighting and clear exit paths. The foam wall coverings, which contributed significantly to the rapid spread of the fire, had never been treated with fire retardant chemicals. Township officials had inspected the attraction but had classified it as a temporary structure, exempting it from many fire safety requirements that would have been mandatory for permanent buildings. This classification persisted despite the fact that the haunted castle had been in continuous operation since 1978. The public outrage was immediate. Parents demanded to know how such a deadly fire hazard could have been permitted to operate in a major amusement park. Six Flags parent company Bally's was indicted on charges of aggravated manslaughter, with prosecutors arguing that the company had shown reckless indifference to human life. In a controversial verdict that sparked protests, a jury acquitted the company of all charges in 1985, concluding that the fire safety codes at the time were too vague to establish criminal negligence. Despite the legal victory, the fire's legacy transformed fire safety regulations for amusement attractions nationwide. New Jersey and many other states implemented strict requirements for sprinkler systems, flame-resistant building materials, emergency lighting, and clearly marked exits in all amusement attractions, regardless of their temporary status. Walk-through attractions now typically include multiple emergency exits and staff monitoring systems. The haunted castle never reopened. Six Flags Great Adventure established a memorial for the victims, and the company overhauled fire safety protocols across all its properties. For the families of the 8 teenagers who perished, the changes came too late, but their tragedy likely saved countless lives through the safety improvements it prompted. The tsunami water ride accident. Dreamworld, Australia's largest theme park, marketed itself as a family-friendly destination on Queensland's Gold Coast. The Thunder River Rapids ride had been a staple attraction since 1986, a relatively gentle water ride where circular rafts carried 6 passengers along a conveyor belt and through artificial rapids. It was considered one of the safest rides in the park, suitable for almost anyone, with a minimum height requirement of just 120 centimeters, about 4 feet. On October 25, 2016, that perception of safety was shattered forever. At approximately 2:20 p.m., a raft carrying 6 passengers stalled when a water pump failed, causing water levels to drop dramatically in just seconds. The raft became stuck on exposed conveyor belt rails. What happened next unfolded with horrifying speed. Another raft continuing along its path collided with the stalled raft. Instead of triggering an emergency shutdown, the conveyor belt continued operating. The impact lifted the back of the stalled raft, causing it to vertical. 4 adult passengers, Cindy Lowe, Kate Goodchild, her brother Luke Dorset, and his partner Ruzi Aragi, were drawn into the mechanism where the conveyor belt met a support structure. All 4 were killed almost instantly by catastrophic injuries as they were pulled into the machinery. Miraculously, Goodchild's 12-year-old daughter and Lowe's 10-year-old son, who were also on the raft, were thrown clear and survived with minor physical injuries, though with severe psychological trauma from witnessing the deaths of their parents. The subsequent inquest revealed a cascade of failures that had created the conditions for disaster. The ride's water level sensors, designed to trigger an automatic shutdown if levels dropped too low, had malfunctioned repeatedly in the days leading up to the accident. Rather than addressing the root cause, staff had developed a workaround, manually resetting the system whenever it triggered, treating the warnings as nuisance alarms rather than critical safety alerts. Even more disturbing, the investigation found that the ride lacked a simple emergency stop button at the operator's station where the accident was visible. The only emergency stop was located 30 meters away from where staff could observe the developing situation. By the time an employee reached it, it was too late. Maintenance records showed that the 30-year-old ride had not received a comprehensive engineering inspection in over 7 years. The conveyor belt system had been modified multiple times from its original design without proper safety reassessment. Perhaps most damning, a similar incident had occurred on the same ride in 2001, when rafts collided in nearly identical circumstances, but without injuries. The warning had gone unheeded. Dreamworld closed for 6 weeks following the accident, and the Thunder River Rapids ride was permanently decommissioned and dismantled. Criminal charges were filed against Ardent Leisure, the park's parent company, which pleaded guilty to 3 safety violation charges and was fined a $3.6 million, about $2.5 million in 2020. The Dreamworld tragedy highlighted how even seemingly gentle, family-oriented attractions can become deadly when maintenance is neglected and safety warnings are ignored. It also demonstrated the dangers of normalization of deviance, when organizations gradually accept increasingly dangerous conditions because disasters haven't yet occurred, despite clear warning signs. Or the Space Journey simulation disaster. In an era when theme parks continually push boundaries to create more immersive and thrilling experiences, the Space Journey ride at EcoVenture Valley in Shenzhen, China, represented the cutting edge. Opened in 2009, the attraction was a highly sophisticated motion simulator designed to give riders the sensation of space travel through a combination of a rotating cabin, dramatic video projections, and special effects. On June 29, 2010, less than a year after its opening, the ride was packed with 44 passengers embarking on their simulated space mission. Without warning, one of the ride's cabins detached from its supporting structure and fell approximately 35 feet to the ground, then flipped over. The impact was catastrophic. 6 people were killed instantly and at least 10 others were seriously injured in what became one of China's deadliest amusement park accidents. The investigation revealed a perfect storm of design flaws, manufacturing defects, and operational negligence. The attraction, designed and built by a local company with a limited experience in advanced simulator technology, featured critical mechanical components that hadn't been properly stress tested. The bolts securing the cabin to its support structure were inadequate for the forces generated during operation, and the metal used in key structural elements was found to be of lower quality than specified in the design. Perhaps most troublingly, inspectors discovered that warning signs had been present before the fatal accident. Maintenance logs showed that operators had reported unusual vibrations and noises in the days leading up to the failure, but management had opted to continue running the attraction at full capacity rather than shut it down for comprehensive inspection. The disaster highlighted significant gaps in China's amusement ride safety regulations at the time. Unlike the United States or European countries, China lacked a standardized system for ride inspection and certification. Local authorities were responsible for oversight, resulting in inconsistent safety standards across different regions. The Space Journey ride had passed its initial inspection, but there was no robust system for ongoing safety monitoring. In the aftermath, the Chinese government implemented sweeping reforms to amusement park safety regulations. New national standards were established for the design, manufacturing, and operation of thrill rides. Regular third-party inspections became mandatory, and a centralized database of safety incidents was created to prevent similar failures across the country. For the families of the victims, these changes offered little consolation. Legal proceedings dragged on for years, complicated by questions of liability between the park operators, ride manufacturers, and local regulatory authorities. Eventually, modest settlements were reached with the victims' families, though the amounts were significantly lower than what might be expected in Western countries for similar incidents. This Space Journey disaster serves as a reminder that as ride technology becomes more complex, the potential failure points multiply. Without rigorous engineering standards and independent safety oversight, even the most impressive attractions can hide deadly flaws beneath their futuristic exteriors. Indiana's waterslide electrocution. On a hot July afternoon in 1979, Maryville, Indiana's Splashdown Dunes water park was crowded with families seeking relief from the summer heat. The park's newest attraction was the Riptide, a water slide that emptied into a small pool where swimmers could cool off before heading to their next adventure. No one could have anticipated that the pool harbored an invisible, lethal danger. 15-year-old Timothy Birch was among the first to use the slide that day. As he splashed into the shallow pool at the bottom, witnesses reported seeing him suddenly stiffen and then float face down in the water. 3 other swimmers who entered the pool immediately after, including a father who attempted to rescue Timothy, also collapsed. By the time emergency services arrived, Timothy and 1 other victim had died. 2 more were hospitalized with severe electrical injuries. The subsequent investigation revealed a catastrophic failure of basic electrical safety. A water pump serving the pool had been improperly installed with inadequate grounding. A wire had chafed against the metal pump housing, creating an electrical short that energized the water. The lethal current was estimated at 110 volts, standard household current, but more than enough to cause fatal heart arrhythmia when conducted through water. What made the tragedy particularly disturbing was how ordinary the circumstances were. The electrical installation had been inspected and approved, but the inspector had failed to notice the improper grounding. The pump had passed a standard visual inspection just 2 days before the accident. There had been no warning signs, no tingling sensations reported by previous swimmers, no visible problems with the equipment. The incident highlighted a danger few water park visitors had previously considered: electrical safety in aquatic environments. Prior to this accident, water parks were primarily concerned with drowning prevention and water quality. Electrical systems, often installed by contractors with limited experience in aquatic facilities, weren't subjected to the specialized scrutiny they required. In the aftermath, Indiana implemented some of the nation's first comprehensive electrical safety standards for water parks. These included requirements for ground fault circuit interrupters, GFCIs, regular testing of water for electrical current, and specialized inspections by electricians with aquatic facility experience. The National Electrical Code was later updated to include specific provisions for swimming pools and water attractions. The Maryville tragedy serves as a sobering reminder that amusement park dangers aren't always visible or obvious. While dramatic mechanical failures tend to receive more media attention, the hidden hazards like electrical systems, fire safety, or water quality can be equally deadly. For the families of Timothy Birch and the other victims, the legal aftermath was complex. Multiple entities shared responsibility: the contractor who installed the pump, the inspector who approved the installation, and the park operators who failed to implement adequate testing protocols. Eventually, settlements were reached with all families, and the Splashdown Dunes Park implemented extensive electrical safety upgrades before reopening. The Superman Tower of Power amputation, Louisville's Kentucky Kingdom Amusement Park, was alive with summer visitors on June 21, 2007. Among them was 13-year-old Caitlin Lassiter, who with friends decided to ride the Superman Tower of Power, a drop tower attraction that lifted riders 177 feet in the air before dropping them at speeds of up to 54 miles per hour. The ride, manufactured by Intamin, was a popular fixture at the park since 1995. As Caitlin's ride reached its apex and prepared for the signature drop, something went catastrophically wrong. One of the steel cables that pulled the passenger carriage upwards snapped, whipping violently through the air before wrapping around Caitlin's legs. Witnesses described a horrifying scene as the severed cable tightened, slicing through both of her feet above the ankles. "I remember feeling like I was on fire, like my entire body was on fire," Caitlin later recalled. Fellow passengers and park staff watched in horror as the teenage girl was lowered to the ground, both feet completely severed. Emergency responders rushed her to the hospital where surgeons managed to reattach her right foot. Her left foot, too damaged for reattachment, was replaced with a prosthetic. The investigation revealed multiple failures in the ride's maintenance and inspection procedures. The cable that failed showed signs of significant wear that should have been detected during routine inspections. Kentucky Kingdom's maintenance records were incomplete, with gaps in documentation of when cables had last been replaced. Most critically, investigators discovered that the recommended replacement interval for the cables had been exceeded by several months.